Welcome to the Brookings County Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This meeting is being recorded and televised and viewable on Swiftel Channel 19, ITC Channel 168, and the Brookings County YouTube channel. I now call the meeting to order. Would you do a roll call to see who's in attendance?
McHugh. Take your phone off mute if you got it on mute.
Spencer Diedrich.
Okay. Bartley.
Aye, present.
McHugh. Not present yet. Davis.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Kleinjohn.
Here.
Vanderwall.
Here.
Spence.
Present.
Jensen.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
And Diedrich.
Here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You got a 4 board, sir?
Okay. First agenda item is approval of minutes from the June 2nd, 2020 meeting. For motion?
So moved.
Motion by Vanderwall,
Second.
second by Bartley. We'll go with the roll call vote again.
Bartley.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Kleinjohn.
Aye.
Vanderwall.
Aye.
Spence.
Aye.
Jensen.
Yes.
Diedrich.
Aye.
And Ford.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Items to be added to the agenda by convention members or staff. Does anybody have anything?
The staff has nothing to add.
Invitation for citizens to schedule time on the commission agenda for an item not listed. Seeing none. Disclosure of conflicts of interest relationships to applicant or ex parte communication. Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Davis,
Second.
second by Vanderwall.
Davis.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Kleinjohn.
Aye.
Vanderwall.
Aye.
Spence.
Aye.
Jensen.
Yes.
Diedrich.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
And Ford.
Aye.
Motion passes.
We will now convene as the Brookings County Board of Adjustment. The Board of Adjustment is a 9-member board which has the power to hear requests and variances, conditional uses, appeals, and special exceptions. The concurring vote of 2/3 of the attending members is necessary for the approval of any action by the board. A 9-member board requires 6 votes, and a 6-member board requires 6 votes. In accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, we require a motion to approve requests before requests can be debated. As a matter of policy, all motions are made in the positive. The board, under specific powers granted to it by the state, shall authorize variances from zoning requirements where special conditions existing on the land will result in unnecessary hardship for the applicant. Financial disadvantage to the property owner shall not constitute proof of unnecessary hardship. Agenda item number 8. Todd Langland has made an application 2020 variance 007 to the Brookings County Board of Adjustment for a variance Article 11, Section 11.01, Agriculture District Area Regulation Number 2, front yard. The minimum depth of the front yard shall be 100 feet. A corner lot will have 2 front yards. The property is described as north 750 feet of the west 782 feet of the northwest 1/4, northwest 1/4, exception highway in section 28, except highway in section 28, township 110 north, range 48W, Alton Township, located at 48011 US Highway 14, White, South Dakota 57276. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Nelson, second by Bartley. Would you read the staff report?
Yes, I will. The staff report was written by my deputy, Richard Hagen. The applicant is for Todd Langland, 48011 US Highway 14, White, South Dakota 57276. Legal description of the property is the north 750 feet of the west 782 feet of the northwest quarter excluding highway in section 28, township 110 north, range 48 west, Alton Township. Article 11, section 11.01A, agricultural district, area regulations, number 2, front yard. The minimum depth of the front yard shall be 100 feet. A corner lot will have 2 front yards. 2020 VAR 007, Mr. Todd Langland has applied for a variance to build a 16-foot by 16-foot residential addition 70 feet from the US 14 highway right-of-way, which require a variance of 30 feet. The required setback is 100 feet from the right-of-way. US Highway 14 has a 75-foot right-of-way along the applicant's property. The applicant was granted a variance on April 1st, 2001 to build the residence in the current location due to the location of an existing driveway and farm buildings. South Dakota Department of Transportation has no objections to the variance request. Things to consider: location of current residence and farm buildings. The floor plan of the residence limits the area where an addition can be located without a major remodel renovation of the main floor and interior rooms. Public notices were published in the Brookings Register on June 23rd and June 30th, 2020, and the White Tri-City Star on June 25th and July 2nd, 2020. Letters were sent to the adjoining landowners, Alton Township Chairman, and the Alton Township Clerk. In the report.
I guess I see the applicant has already stepped forward here, would you state your name and add anything to the report here that you'd like, or?
It's Todd Langland, 48011 US Highway 14, White, South Dakota. Back in 2001, we were granted a variance to build the home. Our old farm home actually was on the east side of the driveway where you come off Highway 14. At that time, we were going to build a 15 by 15 deck on the home. That never did happen. And looking into it, I found out that's when I need a variance to do a 3 seasons room is what it is. So, any questions?
Okay. With that, I guess I'll open the public hearing portion of this. Just a simple reminder that we're limiting everybody to 5 minutes per person. We'll start with proponents, if there's anybody who wants to say anything for this. Or on the phone. Seeing nobody in the crowd or on the phone for it. Opponents, is there anybody in the crowd or on the phone for it? Or against it, I'm sorry. Seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the hearing. Does any member of the board have any additional comments or questions?
The photos pretty much speak for themselves. They got the dimensions on them.
Okay. We'll close the comments and questions portions. And Bob, would you read the finding of the facts, please?
Brookings County Variance 2020 VAR 007, application for a variance having been filed with the Brookings County Zoning Commission, acting as the Brookings County Board of Adjustment, a copy of the application being attached hereto. Such application being made by Todd Langland regarding the following real property with a legal description of north 750 feet of the west 782 feet of the northwest quarter excluding highway in section 28, Township 110 North, Range 48 West, Alton Township. After due notice, a public hearing having been held on the application on the 7th day of July, 2020. Number one, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment hereby finds that the strict application of the Brookings County zoning ordinance would produce undue hardship, that such hardship is not shared generally by other properties in the same zoning district in the same vicinity, that the authorization of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and the character of the district will not be changed by granting of the variance, and that the granting of such variance is based upon reasons of demonstrable and exceptional hardship as distinguished from variations for purposes of convenience, profit, and caprice. The Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finds that the condition or situation of the property concerned or the intended use of the property is not so general or recurrent in nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation to be adopted as an amendment to the zoning ordinance. That was number two. Number three, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finding that the written application of the petitioner demonstrates that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or buildings in the same district, that literal interpretation of the provisions of the Brookings County zoning ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of the ordinance, that the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant, and that the granting of the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by the ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Number four, Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finding that the reasons set forth in the application justify the granting of the variance and that the variance is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure, that the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the Brookings County zoning ordinance and will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. Number five, Brookings County Board of Adjustment further determines and conditions this variance upon the following special conditions or safeguards. A, shape and size of the lot and location of existing buildings. The Brookings County Board of Adjustment, by at least 2/3 vote of its full membership, hereby grants the above petitioner a variance for the above described real property as follows: build a 16-foot by 16-foot residential addition 70 feet from U.S. Highway 14 right-of-way. This variance is specifically conditioned upon initial and continued compliance with all conditions and safeguards in number 5 above, and upon compliance with all applicable provisions of the Brookings County zoning ordinance. The Brookings County zoning director either will or will not be authorized to issue any required building permits for construction consistent with the terms of this variance. If this variance is not used within 3 years of the date granted, it shall be invalid. And it would be dated 7th day of July 2020 and signed and filed as of today.
Thank you. Would you do a roll call vote?
Nelson,
Aye.
Klein John,
Aye.
Spence, Jensen,
Yes.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Dietrich,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
and Ford.
Aye.
9-4-0 against, motion passes.
Agenda item number 9.
Can I get you, does it sign these now? Go ahead. Okay.
Agenda item number 9, Amanda Block has made an application 2020 variance 008 to Brookings County Board of Adjustment for the variance Article 11, Section 11.01, Agricultural District Area Regulation, Number 1. Excuse me. Lot size, the property is described as the south 480 feet of the west 474 feet of the southwest 1/4, southwest 1/4 of Section 2, Township 110 North, Range 49W, Aurora Township, located at 47606 209th Street, Aurora, South Dakota 57002. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Jensen,
Second.
second by Vanderwall. Would you read the staff report, please?
Certainly. One. Okay, this is variance 2020 VAR 008, July 7th, 2020, once again prepared by my deputy, Richard Hagen. The applicant is Amanda Block, 5025 18th Street, Brookings, South Dakota 57006. Landowner, First Bank and Trust, P.O. Box 5057, Brookings, South Dakota 57006. Legal description is the south 480 feet of the west 474 feet of the southwest quarter of Section 2, Township 110 North, Range 49 West, Aurora Township, located at 47606 209th Street, Aurora, South Dakota 57002. Article 11, Section 11.01A, Agricultural District, Area Regulations Number 1, Lot Size. 2020 VAR 008, Amanda Block has a purchase agreement with the landowner subject to the approval of the variance request. The applicant has applied for a variance to build 21 feet outside the permittable buildable area of an historical school site. The site was the original Fountain School built in 1879, a 1 square acre site, 209 feet by 209 feet, located in the southwest corner of Section 2 of Aurora Township. The Brookings County Planning Commission confirmed it was an original 1 acre square school site and a permitted use for a single-family residence at their November 7, 2017 meeting. The original school 1 acre parcel was sold in 1920 to the adjoining landowner who owned the rest of the southwest quarter. The land was sold several times over the years. Hog confinement barns, grain storage, and farm buildings were built in the southwest corner. 5.66 acres was split off in 2002 to include the historical school site, hog barns, grain bins, and farm buildings. The hog barns were removed from the property and the lot was used for feeding cattle and grain storage. Some things to consider. The 21-foot variance would allow the expansion of the minimum lot size that was granted by the board on November 7, 2017, for the original size of the lot. Number 2, the proposed variance, the residence will exceed the setback requirements of 133 feet on the township road, which is 476th Avenue, and 150 feet in the county road, also known as 209th Street. Number 3, what is the best use of the remaining 4.66 acres of land? Number 1, a residence or ag use, such as grain storage or livestock production. Public notices were published in the Brookings Register on June 23 and 30th, 2020, and the White Tri-City Star on June 25th and July 2nd, 2020. Letters were sent to the adjoining landowners, Aurora Township Chairman, and the Aurora Township Clerk, and the Brookings County Highway Department. Here we have the application. Here's the lot. The original school was over here in the corner, from what I understand, about where this is, and where they proposed to build would be right here, which would get them out of all the setback requirements. As you can see here, the sign says proposed lot. So instead of building in the corner, they shift the house over to the east. This is a Township Road 476, I believe, and then this is your 209th County Highway here. This is the supporting document from 2017 showing what I explained, how it was the school site in 1879. Back then, paperwork was submitted, everything was put into the file. This shows the original school lot itself. These would be the Fountain Apartments, and this would be the adjoining neighbor over here. Here's what the lot currently looks like in this image. I guess I don't see the date of the image. Says here, the June 8th to 2020, but the image has to be a little bit over that. And here are photographs taken. Here's the intersection of the road. This is the grain bin that's in it now. This would be the Fountain Apartment over here on your right, my left. Here shows the agricultural buildings that is left there. As he said, the hog barn had been torn down years ago. And that's the end of my photos.
Thank you. Would the applicant come forward and add anything or anything you'd like to add to the report or? Okay. With that, I guess we'll open the public portion of the hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to say anything for this?
Mr. Chair, Luke Muller here with First District.
Yes, Luke.
I was just going to add a little bit. I helped Mr. Haugen a little bit go through this, and for the board's sake, the background on this particular case is one of those rare instances where the the Board of Adjustment exercised its administrative capacity back in 2017 in stating and pointing out that this 1 acre building site had the ability to have a house on it. That's within the ordinance and the ability of the zoning board to do that. The reason you have a variance in front of you is because at the time there was some specific statement said in there about building within the area. That's where Mr. Haugen referenced in the staff report that they're building, Mr. Hill, that they're going to build 21 feet outside of that old 1 acre lot. The bottom line is I know this board does not have a history of granting variances to minimum lot area. This is, at least in my review of this, one of those rare instances where it may be appropriate because you already authorized a 1 acre building site, and all this applicant is asking to do is make that bigger and frankly more, or at least closer to conforming to your ordinance. The only thing I would suggest is that perhaps this board consider requiring a replat of the property if that's not already expected to be done if this action is approved. That's all I've got.
Thank you.
So the replat request would come from the First Bank and Trust, or would it come from the owners of the property if the purchase is successful? I mean, this is contingent on your purchase agreement with First Bank and Trust. It's contingent upon the variance. Is it also then would be contingent upon a replat of that lot?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I might answer that,
Thank you, Luke.
my recommendation would just be that no building permits can be issued until that lot is platted together. So if that's up to the bank or this applicant, it's really up to them. It's just that if you make that a condition, my recommendation is that be a condition of getting a building permit. So before they get a building permit, it's got to be on the new blank edition of whatever, and just do it that way.
That answers my question.
Okay. Is there anybody else for this in the crowd or on the phone?
I mean, if you have comments as the applicant about what you're going to do with the property, this is the time to state that, what you're going to do, what you're going to build, what you're going to use the property for.
We'd just like to build a house a little bit further from the road so that we could plant more trees for protection from the weather.
Any other use for the property that you intend?
No, just a house.
Horses, cattle?
Oh, okay, a few horses, a little barn maybe for some chickens, rabbits, horses.
Could you please introduce yourselves? I'm sorry.
Amanda Block.
Okay, I'm Arjan Blok. I think there is some misunderstanding about the property. It is 100% for private use. There's not business, nothing. It will be an horse barn. We had another drawing, a small horse barn, and they are just for private stuff, 2, 4 horses, whatever, some chickens, whatever. But it is 100% private. No business, no egg, whatever.
Okay. Don't intend any ag business on the property. Okay. Thank you.
So it's my understanding that you got a tentative purchase agreement to buy the entire 5.66 acres, is that correct?
5.22.
Or what's on here?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other proponents in the audience or on the phone? Okay, could you guys please step away from the mic here now? Thank you. Is there any opponents in the crowd, or state your name when you sit down, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Board of Adjustment. My name is R. Sean Torno from Torno Law Office in Sioux Falls. I represent owners of the adjacent property, Shannon Robbins and Caleb Coors. They are at 47617 209th Street, Aurora, South Dakota. And they and a number of their adjacent neighbors, approximately 16 to 20 neighbors, have some initial concerns. What we would say is, on behalf of my clients and the other neighbors, they would be understanding if this in fact was going to be a residential building. However, I take from my 16 years with the City of Sioux Falls and dealing with variances and notice that a couple of things within the application. First of all, the application was not completed as it was required to be completed by the owners of the property, because the owners, as this board knows, is First Bank and Trust. The application itself says that it's being signed by the undersigned property owner, but it's signed by Amanda Block. I'll get into that in a minute. I understand I have a 5-minute limitation. Let me sort of hit the high points of the concerns that Shannon Robbins and Caleb Coors and the others have. First of all, as I understand in talking to Mr. Hill before the hearing, we would submit that if this variance is going to be granted, it needs to be done correctly. I think all of us, having been involved in government going forward, you need to do it correctly. And to hearken back to an analogy from Apollo 13, where they said, Houston, we have a problem, I would say, Brookings, you have a problem. That is, starting with, we would submit the application is submitted by the wrong entity or individual. Amanda Block on June 9th is not the owner of the property. First Bank and Trust is. We also note within the application, it doesn't say that there's going to be a residence. It says under A that they want the variance, and we think it doesn't meet your criteria under the ordinance. I'll touch on that in a minute. That they want that in order to allow a larger building space. And obviously, as was referenced here, we don't have a building permit. We just know that there's essentially a 70 by 30 building, whether that's a residence, we hope so, or some other building that might go with other purposes that's even outlined in your staff report. That's the concern. Before I go any further, I would ask Shanna, we do have the formalized objections from the group have been documented. We've got copies for all you folks. I would ask Shanna to hand those out. Given my time limitation, I do want to touch on, though, a couple of items. That is, when I say, Brookings, you have a problem, there wasn't proper notice provided here. As I understand from Mr. Hill, it was decided here by the zoning officer, him, to provide notice to the adjacent property owners. We know that there was a notice to Caleb Kors. I don't know if there's notice to other folks, but we do know that Shannon Robbins is an owner of that property, was never notified. It's improper. We do know, arguably, and I don't want to get lost in the weeds of a technicality, but again, having been involved with the city with these things for 16 years, I know that times and dates and requirements within your ordinances mean something. This was published on June 23rd. It's required to be published 14 days prior to today's hearing. That's not 14 days prior to today's hearing. 13 days, not 14. Again, I don't want to get caught, lost in the weeds on this, but obviously we have concerns when the application is being filled out simply asking for a larger building space with no building permit in hand. And when in fact, as you'll see within the document that was handed out, within your ordinance, Article 6, Section 6, applicants here today, and as even as part of the staff report, there's been no affirmative showing of an undue or unnecessary hardship, specifically under Article 6, Section 6, and it's under point 5A. There's been no showing that there is a special condition or circumstance that exists which is peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, and which is applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. I think the same could be said for B, and obviously, as you know, it's got to meet all the criteria A through F. They haven't shown that. I understand they say they just want it 21 feet back for whatever reason, but I also know the staff report talks about that there can be ag uses. We do know that whether it's Amanda Block or her father, who might be behind the purchase, that of course he owns and operates and runs CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations. The concern, and a very valid concern, by the adjacent neighbors is that this could turn into that. I understand here they said the plans are not to do that. We would submit that the application was not correctly filed, doesn't meet your minimum criteria, doesn't show that there is some peculiarity, I guess I would say, to this property that it needs a variance. And given the shortcomings and the concerns that my clients have, and also that the notice was not.
Sir, your 5 minutes are up.
All right. I would just wrap up and say, you need to do this correctly. We know there are shortcomings. There are valid concerns. You need to comply with your own ordinances. They haven't done so. If we set this to another day where we cover all the bases and my client's concerns can be better addressed, we would look to address you again. But we would ask you to comply with your own ordinances. Thank you.
Could I ask them one question? Sir, you said one landowner was not notified.
Correct.
What was that name again?
Shannon Robbins.
Robbins. Thank you.
And I only represent those two. I don't know if there are other adjacent owners. I want to make clear, Mr. Chair, did you get the document that was passed out? Did everybody receive that? Okay. And I know there's some other neighbors in there. I can't attest whether they were all notified or not. But I would submit, it really doesn't matter. If one adjacent property owner, once Mr. Hill decided to do that. The reason I say that, your ordinance, of course, says he may determine to do that. Once he did, then they needed to be notified. They weren't. The variance application, as it stands, fails.
My only defense to that would be we send it to the address, whether or not the person, if it's a joint-owned facility, then two people could be actually on the deed, but it would only go to one address.
And as I understand, Mr. Hill, you said you believe you're required to send it to the address. Under Article 6, the zoning official may require, but you did, the notification of adjacent property owners by first-class mail. Doesn't say by address, the adjacent property owners. Shannon Robbins, as a property owner, was not notified. Thank you.
Are there any other opponents in the audience or on the phone? Seeing none, I will close the public portion of the hearing, and I will switch to the board for additional comments or questions.
I did get we've got a couple comments through the, where's the phone messages? Yep, we got comments.
Okay, I'll wait for those.
Comment filed on July 2nd, 2020. I, Caleb Kors, have objections to variance 2020 VAR 008 applied for by Amanda Block. I, Caleb Kors, will attend the meeting on July 7th at 8 p.m. in person to state objectives. The next one was a phone call before he mailed the letter, and it states he left a message. Caleb Kors called and requested to speak at the planning meeting scheduled for July 7, 2020. He said that he is opposed to the Amanda Block 2020 VAR 008 variance. I personally spoke to him that day. The next one I've got is Pam Stern called and requested that she and Greg Stern be allowed to speak at the planning meeting scheduled for July 7, 2020. She requested a return call, and a return call was attempted and a message was left. I did contact her a second time and spoke to her at 11:11 a.m., and she verified that both listed persons will be attending the meeting. We received an answering machine message on Monday, which is yesterday, 8:56 p.m., so it was not officially filed. The message states, Steve Bunkers left a message for the board members regarding variance request by Ms. Block. He stated, I am totally in favor of cleaning up the area. If a family home is going to be built on the location, I would like the board to consider an amendment or stipulation that no longer can there be animals on the site over 10 animal units. He noted that he has lived by the site for many years and has seen various animals located on the site, and at times there are good operations as well as horribly run operations with deceased animals, garbage, and manure spills on the site. And then 10:33 a.m., July 2nd, 2020, Shanna Robbins called and requested to speak at the planning meeting scheduled for July 7th, 2020. She will be addressing the Amanda Block variance. I presume her legal representative did that for her. And at 9:19 a.m., June 29th, Verna Clark called in to inquire as to the request made by Amanda Block, 2020 variance 008. She had no issues with the variance as long as Ms. Block does not infringe on her, Ms. Clark's property. And that was filed June 29th, 2020. And that's all the comments I've received. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
I have a question for Luke. You still on the phone from First District?
I am.
This is Mike Bartley. The question before us at this point, before we go much farther, is the legal requirement that Mr. Torno pointed out that we didn't comply, both in the notice in the paper for the time frame, 13 days instead of 14 days, the applicant's signature being the owner of the property versus the purchaser of the property, and something else on there. But do you have an opinion on any of those three? To help
Well, the
us?
first thing I need to point out is that any legal opinion needs to rely on the state's attorney or any attorneys. I will point out from a standpoint of applicable practices as far as zoning administration and some experience that I've gotten these similar arguments. The first thing that I'd point out is it sounds as though the client that we're referencing is Shanna Robbins. I believe that property is 47617 209th Street, if that's correct. I'm using Beacon Maps, and that the property we're in question here is 47606 209th Street. If you look at the map, that property owned by Shanna Robbins, and again, I'm only using Beacon, so I may be wrong, so I apologize for that. But if the map that has a date of 11/24/19 on it in the staff report, it does show that there's space in between those properties, which would indicate that that's not adjacent, and that would make sense from a common practice. A lot of zoning offices will not consider that adjacent, considering or on the basis that it frankly is not adjacent. The other part, as far as the timing, how long is a day or when you count back from? I can tell you that multiple communities have honored and counted back from the day of publication, and I just did a quick math, and so I apologize. The representative may have been correct, but when I counted back right on 14. If you're right on 14, I know that we had that case in Covington County, and that was argued that on the exact number of days was not appropriate. Again, I might be wrong on my math. The last point, as far as the owner on it signing, oftentimes communities will take. However, as the agent for the neighbor had pointed out, that I'm not sure on the language in the ordinance, but oftentimes a county will accept if there is an agreement on the property in which the person who is the applicant has an agreement to purchase the property pending something. It is taken to imply that the owner is aware of this. However, that is a question that I probably ought not render a detailed answer on. Frankly, it probably would be best to have a letter from the current owner at a minimum saying that they're okay with or they understand that this application is being made.
Thank you, Luke. I think you pointed out some vital things that we need to consider. I would consider that we should probably go ahead and table this till our next meeting in order to allow those things to happen, and the consideration of a replat application for the lot contingent upon the sale. How that works, Bob, you'll have to tell me, or Richard will, but I think we're probably better off if we get our own legal opinion from our state's attorney on the questions Mr. Torno pointed out to make sure that we follow the law and our ordinances appropriately. So with that, I'll make a motion to table this to the next meeting.
I would second that.
There's been a motion and a second to table this to the August meeting. Luke, are you still there, quick?
I am.
I have a question as soon as we're done voting here.
You can ask
Sure.
him now if you want.
Okay, just quick here. With the concern to the CAFO going into the deal, what is the minimum setback for a variance?
You mean the setback on a CAFO?
On a CAFO.
It would depend on the size, obviously. I'm not sure what size anyone is concerned with here. And I apologize because off the top of my head, I'm not aware, but I believe that number is a quarter mile from a residence, if I'm not mistaken. But again, that depends on the size of the CAFO, as well as the lot itself may limit how far from roads it can be. Again, off the top of my head, I don't know, and frankly, my computer just died on me, so I can't even look it up right now.
So basically, going with the quarter mile minimum setback, there's no way possible for them to ever build a CAFO on this site. Because
the only thing you want to keep in mind is the number and level to which individuals have a concern with. But you're right. Due to the setback, you would be asking for variance from the setback to stick a CAFO up in accordance with your ordinance of a certain size. I don't recall what that number is that it starts at, if it goes on the basis of an animal unit per acre or what, up to a certain point. But the bottom line is that anything that would require a conditional use permit definitely would be precluded if there's a house less than a quarter mile from there that is not inclined to accept a CAFO there.
Okay. Bob, would you call the roll call vote on tabling this till next month?
All right. Klein John.
Aye.
Vanderwall.
Aye.
Spence.
Aye.
Jensen.
Yes.
Dietrich.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
And Ford.
Aye.
Motion tabled until you said next month.
Yep. Next meeting.
Does that give you guys enough time to get it in order? Should ask that first, I guess. Moving on to agenda item number 10. Ryan Hansen has made an application 2020 CU 012 to the Brookings County Board of Adjustment for a conditional use, Article 11, Section 11.01A, Agricultural District Conditional Use Number 26. The county zoning commission may permit other uses which, in its opinion, are not detrimental to the other uses and are in the general character of the agriculture district. The property is described as the west half of the southwest 1/4, excluding north 2 rods in section 15, township 110, north range 51W, Volga Township. Is there a motion?
Move approval?
Motion by Bartley,
I'll second.
second by Jensen. Bob, would you read the staff report, please?
By all means. 2020 CU 012 dated July 7th, 2020, prepared by Deputy Richard Hagen. Applicants Ryan Hansen for 6461 228th Avenue, Rutland, South Dakota 57057. Landowner is Raymond Vanderwall, 401 North Samara Avenue, Volga, South Dakota 57071. Legal description: the west 1/2 of the southwest quarter, excluding north 2 rods of section 15, township 110 north, range 51 west. Brookings County zoning ordinance, Article 11A, agricultural district, conditional use number 26. The county zoning commission may permit other uses which in its opinion are not detrimental to other uses or in general character of the agricultural district. Specifically for 2020 CU 012, Ryan Hansen has applied for conditional use number 26. You just read that word for word. He's applied for conditional use number 26 for agricultural seed sales and bulk farm herbicide and insecticide sales with container size not to exceed 275 gallons. Seed sales and seed of bulk herbicide/insecticide will be added to the agricultural section of the zoning ordinance update, which is currently being done. The seed sales will start as soon as possible, and the sale of bulk herbicide/insecticide would be in the future. No herbicide or insecticide would be mixed for field application on site. This is only for sale and storage of the product until it is picked up by the customer. This is an agricultural-based business in the agricultural district and will be located on US Highway 14, 3/4 of a mile west of Volga. The applicant has visited with the South Dakota Department of Transportation, and they have no objections as he will be using an existing driveway. The city of Volga has no objections to the conditional use request. The applicant will need to apply for a license from the South Dakota Department of Agricultural, that's the Department of Ag, for seed sales/treatment and herbicide/insecticide sales in quantities of up to 275 gallons. The South Dakota Department of Ag does not require containment barriers for totes containing up to 275 gallons, and no EPA registration is required. The site will consist of a warehouse/office building, bulk seed bin storage, and inside storage. The seed treatment will be done inside the warehouse as seed is sold and then delivered to the customer. The seed will be brought in by semi-trailer and stored in the bulk seed bins or prepackaged bulk storage containers. The applicant has a purchase agreement with the landowner for a 4.5 plus or minus acre parcel of land located in the southeast corner of the parcel. The property has had a preliminary survey done and is attached to this report. The zoning office has reviewed the above documents and has made a site visit to the proposed location. Public notices were published in the Brookings Register on June 23 and 30th, June 23 and June 30th, 2020, and in the Volga Tribune on June 25th and July 2nd, 2020. Letters were sent to the adjoining landowners, South Dakota Department of Transportation, and the Volga Township Clerk and Volga Township Chairperson. I got some, here's the site plan on it, straight, right, it'd be up against the cemetery, it looks like, to the west of the cemetery, off of US Highway 14. This is some of the write-up that he's got going on. It's going to be called Valley Crop Service. It's going to be a Pioneer Hybrid International Seed Dealership. It'll be located west of Volga on US 14. Services will include seed sales, warehouse, and seed treatment facilities. There will be one building on the property for the foreseeable future. Building will consist of indoor treatment, loading and unloading. There will be 2 overhead doors at the customers, and I will be able to drive straight through the building so there is less impact from the weather and for ease of access. All treating equipment, treatments, and conveyors will operate indoors. Down the road, there will be bulk seed bins placed on the west end outside of the shed. They will be filled in the spring, and any seed not used will be loaded out by the end of planting season. The warehouse will take up most of the space within the building. Seed will be delivered in hard side boxes and bags by truck. The east end of the building will be office and meeting space. The lower level will be offices, storage room, bathroom, and kitchen. There will be an upper level to the east end that will be an open area for when I hold meetings. There will be 2 people with offices in this building, myself and another seed salesman. There will be a possible second person there seasonally for help as needed. Hours of operation would generally be from 8 to 5 during the off-season and longer during the peak times of agricultural industry from April to June and also from September to November. These hours will largely depend upon planting and harvesting seasons and what the weather allows. During the peak season in the spring, I would expect 2 to 8 trucks weekly delivering seed to the warehouse. Most of the deliveries are done by me and other salesmen. There will be some customers that prefer to pick up their own seed as needed. There'll be very little truck traffic after June as all the seed is delivered and boxes/pallets are returned. On a daily basis throughout the year, I'd only expect around 3 to 5 customers a day visiting the location, so traffic should be minimal. Day-to-day operations would be office work and sales meeting from harvest until planting season. Delivery of seeds to the warehouse start after the first of the year as seed becomes available. Deliveries to customers start the end of March into April, depending on if they can store their own seed. After planting season, it'll be mostly customer visits and office work being done. During the harvest season, the main focus is to be out with customers checking on the results in the field. Signed by Ryan Hansen. Here's a proposed drawing from Silver Design, a preliminary drawing only, but here you can see the cemetery. It's right off the state highway. City of Volga's down there. Of course, they said they have no objections. Your cemetery grounds are right there. There is a tree belt between the cemetery and the location. And that's the end of the report.
Okay, would the applicant come forward and state your name and add anything?
Ryan Hansen, 46461 228th Street, Rutland. Yeah, just asking for a conditional use permit to start a seed dealership, essentially.
Okay. I guess if that's it there, I'll open the public portion of the hearing. Is there anybody in the audience or on the phone that is for this?
Thank you. I'm Jim Shady. I'm the chairman of the Hillside Cemetery Association, which is just north of it, and we're all in favor of this, especially if they donate some herbicide so we can help spray the weeds at our cemetery. The only other concern is that we also, obviously, Shawnee Vineyard Winery is adjoining to the west. We apply magnesium chloride on the road to keep the dust down. We're concerned about dust. This board has authorized a conditional use permit for a wedding venue, and we'd like to make sure there isn't dust coming from the east when we're holding those events. But I want to welcome Mr. Hanson to the neighborhood, and happy hours at 5.
Is there any other proponents in the audience or on the phone? Seeing none, are there any opponents in the audience or on the phone? Hearing none, I'll now close the public portion of the hearing. Is there any additional comments or questions from members of the board?
So will there be a row of trees? I guess I'm a little bit,
The only proposed row of trees that I have in mind right now would be to essentially create a barrier between the cemetery and myself.
yeah, that's what I was concerned about. If there were- if you were-
Possibly some on the north side, more, you can see the row of trees or the about 1 acre trees on the north end there, possibly just extending it from the north side of that to the west side of the property, just for a little bit more of a snow barrier. Otherwise, I don't really want to box myself in on the west or the south, so.
Yeah, I just, if there was a burial going on and you were making a lot of deliveries or
Right,
something.
yeah,
and
no,
I'd like
that's
to-
kind of motive number one, when and if I get the purchase agreement signed, is to get a row of trees started in there, so there is a physical barrier, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything in place with the cemetery to,
I've talked with, Ray Vanderwall, he must be on the cemetery association for Trinity right there. They didn't see any objection to it.
okay, I just didn't know if there was a funeral May 10th, if you were gonna halt production
Right,
deliveries for an hour.
obviously moving into the area, I'm more than open for people to stop by and hash this stuff out. I mean, I'm more than happy to keep things down if, yes, there is a burial go on, or like Mr. Shady said, if there's wedding venues, things like that, just come let me know. I can spray it down with water, keep the dust down. There should be very minimal gravel around the building itself. I don't see it being an issue, but by no means, don't be afraid to stop and talk about it, so.
So what-
Ryan, you said that you have not talked to anyone on the cemetery board? 'Cause Ray is not on the board.
Ray's not on it, okay, then I need to find out who is. I was under the understanding that he was.
Okay, he is not.
Okay. I'll do that here this week for sure. Yep.
So will this building look similar to that Pioneer building that's about halfway to Flandreau by the, are you familiar with that?
Oh, on
building?
Highway 13?
Yeah,
It's gonna be more just a standard shed, like a 60 by 160 rectangle shed. Not a fancy one like, they got down there.
okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, Bob, would you read the findings of the facts?
Okay, Brookings County's conditional use permit 2020CU012. Application for a conditional use permit having been filed with the Brookings County Zoning Commission acting as the Brookings County Board of Adjustment, a copy of the application being attached here too. Such application being made by Ryan Hanson regarding the following real property: west 1/2, southwest quarter, excluding north 2 rods in section 15, township 110 north, range 51 west, Volga Township. After due notice, a public hearing having been held on the application on the 7th day of July 2020. Number one, the Brookings County Board of Adjustment hereby finds it is empowered to grant such a conditional use under the following sections of the Brookings County zoning ordinance, Article 11, Section 11.01A Agricultural District, conditional use permit number 26. The county zoning commission may permit other uses which, in its opinion, are not detrimental to other uses and are in general character of the agricultural district. Further finding that the granting of the conditional use will not adversely affect the public interest. Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finds and certifies the following specific rules governing the conditional use requested have been complied with. Number one, comply with South Dakota Codified Law SDCL 38-12A, agricultural seed and sales, and South Dakota Codified Law 38-21-33.4 for herbicide and insecticide sales. Brookings County Board of Adjustment further finds that satisfactory provisions and arrangements have been made concerning the following where applicable. Entrance and exit to property and proposed structures thereon with particular reference to automotive and pedestrian safety and convenience, traffic flow and control and access in case of fire or catastrophe. Requirements: will use existing driveway off of US 14, Highway 14. B, off-street parking and loading areas where required with particular attention to the items in A above and the economic noise, glare, or other effects of a special exception on adjoining properties and properties generally in the district. Requirements: no on-street parking allowed. They will use on-site parking only. Utilities, refuge, and services with reference to locations, availability, and compatibility. Requirements: use a dumpster service. D, screening and buffering with reference to type, dimensions, and character requirements. None applicable listed. Of course, there is some trees already in place. Signs, if any, and proposed exterior lighting with reference to glare, traffic safety, economic effect, and compatibility and harmony with district properties in the district. Requirement: a 32 square foot sign is allowed along with any required regulatory and safety signs. F, required yards and other open spaces, display area as shown on site plan. G, general compatibility with adjacent properties and other property in the district. Comprehensive plan requirements have been met for the agricultural district. Brookings County, number 4, Brookings County Board of Adjustment further determines and conditions this conditional use permit upon the following additional special conditions or safeguards. A, follow South Dakota Department of Agricultural requirements for licensing and South Dakota codified laws for seed sales and herbicides and insecticide sales. Brookings County Board of Adjustment, by at least 2/3 vote of its full membership, hereby grants the petitioner a conditional use permit for the above described real property for use as property, agricultural seed sales, seed treatment and storage, herbicide and insecticide sales and storage, containers not to exceed 275 gallons. This conditional use permit is specifically conditioned upon initial and continued compliance with all the requirements and conditions in 3 and 4, above and upon compliance with all applicable provisions of the Brookings County zoning ordinance. The Brookings County zoning director is or is not authorized to issue any required building permits for construction consistent with the requirements of this conditional use permit. Obviously, if it's approved, he will be authorized to issue any required permits. If this conditional use permit is not used within 3 years of the date granted, it shall be invalid. It will be dated 7 July 2020. Any additions or corrections?
Seeing none, would you call the roll call vote?
Spence? Aye. Jensen?
Yes.
Dietrich?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Klein John?
Aye.
Vanderwall?
Aye.
And Ford.
Aye.
Motion passes. Did you sign?
Moving on to agenda item number 11. Joshua Bungard has made an application 2020 CU 013 to the Brookings County Board of Adjustment for a conditional use Article 11, Section 11.01, A Agricultural District Conditional Use Permit Number 6, Contractor Shops and Yards, and Conditional Use Permit Number 20, Home Extended Businesses. The property is described as Lucas Addition in the Northwest 1/4, Section 11, Township 111 North, Range 49W, Afton Township, located at 20328 476th Avenue, White, South Dakota, 57276. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Davis,
Second.
second by Nelson. Bob, would you read the staff report?
Yes, 1 second. We're gonna try to put those on the thing, ma'am, when we get to them. Not right now, just. Okay. Okay, 2020 CU 013, July 7, 2020, prepared by Richard Hogan, my deputy. Applicant's going to be Joshua Bungard, 20328 476th Avenue, White, South Dakota, 57276. Legal description, Lucas Addition in the Northwest Quarter, Section 11, Township 111 North, Range 49 West, Afton Township. This will be Brookings County Zoning Ordinance Article 11, Section 11.01, A Agricultural District, Conditional Use Permit Number 6, Contractor's Yards, Contractor's Shop and Yards, and Conditional Use Permit Number 20, Home Extended Business. 2020 CU 013, Joshua Bungard has applied for an agricultural district conditional use number 6 for Contractor's Yard, and conditional use number 20, home extended business. The contractor's yard will be located on the parcel where he resides. Contractor's yard will be used for a small-scale construction and landscaping business for equipment, storage, and supplies. Conditional use number 20, home extended business for a temporary seasonal campground for seasonal employees of his business and construction workers or hunters/tourists in the fall. He is planning on 4 30-foot by 60-foot RV pads with water, sewer, and electric. The preliminary plans for the septic system will be a sealed holding tank, and it will be pumped out as required by a septic service. A dumpster will be available for trash and serviced by a trash service. The septic system and drinking water will need to meet South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resource requirements. A license for a campground will be needed from the South Dakota Department of Health if the applicants will be staying for less than 28 consecutive days. South Dakota Department of Health requirements for a campground per South Dakota Codified Law 34-18-1 and Administrative Rules of South Dakota 440214 will need to be met. Long-term campers staying more than 28 consecutive days require an outside fire extinguisher, dumpster service for attendants, outside rodent and pest control, and other requirements as directed by the South Dakota Department of Health. Short-term campers staying less than 28 consecutive days requires a campground license from the South Dakota Department of Health, South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources approved design septic system, South Dakota DNR approved drinking water supply, and other requirements as directed by Department of Health. The spaces are screened by a shelter belt along the road and north side of the property and will be operational from May to October only. The applicant has visited with the township requiring a road agreement, and they have no objections to the contractor yard or the seasonal campground. Public notices were published in the Brookings Register on June 23rd and 30th, 2020, and the White Tri-City Star on June 25th and July 2nd, 2020. Letters were sent to the landowner, adjoining landowners, Afton Township Chairman, and Clerk. Let's see if we can get this. Here's what the site plan looks like here. House over here. Learn how to use the computer program. Here's the location off of 476th Avenue. On the site visit, you can see it'll be tucked in behind, not visible from the road very easy. And looking south towards the yard from the RV pads and contractor shopping yard. And I think she's got some more photos. Let's see. Podium dot- You have to move that box where he's sitting. There's a camera, shoot straight down on it. Yep, there's your hand. There you go.
Okay, would the applicant come forward for questions from the board, I guess? State your name.
Good evening, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and Mr. Chair. Thank you for hearing our request this evening. My name is Stacy Bungard, and this is my husband, Joshua Bungard. We do live at 20328 476th Avenue in White, South Dakota. Generally, we lived about 2 miles west of White and less than a mile north of Highway 30. We like to proceed with having just 4 RV spaces. We've looked at the property and we're very sensitive to the needs of others, I guess, and trying to do so where it would not have visual impacts to others in our neighborhood. The RV park would allow workers to live close to their place of employment, and we feel like our living there, we could provide good on-site management for that. So one of the spaces would be used for a temporary seasonal employee of my husband's company. He has JB's Landscaping and Construction, which is a small-scale business. The other 3 would potentially be rented out, and we're looking to rent out long-term spaces, so it would be over, I believe it was the 28 days required, so we wouldn't need that particular license for the campground, as the tenants will need to sign a minimum 30-day lease for that. Again, operational, basically kind of dependent on weather. We're thinking April, May through October, early November, again, based on the weather. We do have water from Brookings Dual Rural, and electrical is from Sioux Valley. We would have a porta potty on site and available. A septic tank would be installed per state requirements and pumped regularly. Quiet time would be from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. And we would not allow pets. We'd put a dumpster on site, and then tenants would be allowed to use the basement in the event of a serious storm or a tornado warning or things like that, so they'd be welcome inside. We would put a fire extinguisher outside, and then we would be posting emergency landlord phone numbers just in case something were to come up. Rodent and pest control will also be provided. We did talk with Mike Thompson from the Afton Township, and he didn't have any comments. My husband also called Department of Health and DENR for more specific requirements. So I guess we would just like to provide a place where workers could live closer to their place of employment. And we have had some interest in one of the wind turbine companies leasing just a few spaces from us. Furthermore, we would like to go forth with a home extended business. So my husband can operate his landscaping and construction business on the property. It's mostly contained within our shop building, which I think Rich's pictures actually may have been better than mine anyway. So I don't really have that much of a picture, but you can see the shop building from the photos that were contained in the staff report. We don't have a lot of on-site storage of materials. Landscaping and small construction jobs in the area, and he does have a few pieces of equipment, but the tools are stored inside of the garage. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do you know what size a septic tank would be put in?
1,200 gallons. 1,200 gallons.
'Cause I just know from my own use, from my rural water bill, that every person in my household uses about 2,000 gallons a month. And that was my concern.
Yeah, we would want to investigate that further to make sure that we would have the adequate capacity on that too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, anything else? Anybody? We'll open the public portion of the hearing. Is there anybody in the audience for this? Or on the phone? Hearing none, we'll move to opponents. Is there anybody in the audience or on the phone against this? Hearing none, I'll close the public portion of the hearing. Is there any additional comments or questions from members of the board? Seeing none, Mr. Hill, would you read the findings of the facts?
Application is 2020.
You broke it.
Okay. Conditional use 2020 CU 013, application for conditional use permit having been filed at Brookings County Zoning Commission acting as the Brookings County Board of Adjustment. Copy of the application being attached here too. Application being made by Joshua Bungard with the following real property, Lucas Addition, in the northwest quarter, section 11, township 111 north, range 49 west, Afton Township, located at 20328 476 Avenue, White, South Dakota 57276. After due notice, a public hearing had been held on the application on July 7th, 2020. Number one, we read all this before, so I'm going to read the highlighted points. We're discussing under number one, Article 11, 11.01, Agricultural District Conditional Use Permit number 6, Contractor's Yards, and Conditional Use Permit number 20, Home Extended Business. Number 2, the requirements are to comply with South Dakota codified laws, SDCL 34-18-1, and South Dakota Administrative Rules 44.0214 for campground. Number 3, the Board of Adjustment finds these following provisions. They will use the existing driveway on 406th Avenue. B, there will be no on-street parking allowed. All parking will be on-site. C, they will be required to have a dumpster service. D, screening, none was mentioned because I got plenty already. For signage, there'll be a 32 square foot sign allowed. F, the site plan, the required yards and other open spaces will be required to stick to the site plan that they submitted for the conditional use permit. And G, comprehensive plan requirements have been met for the agricultural district. Number 4, Brookings County Board of Adjustment further determines the conditions this conditional use permit upon the following special conditions. Conditional use number 20, home extended business. follow South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resource requirements for septic system and drinking water. I know you had a question on the septic system. It will have to be designed by a certified installer. They can't just automatically do it on their own. And B, the campground for seasonal employees of the landowner. Brookings County Board of Adjustment by at least 2/3 vote of its full membership. Also would grant the petitioner a conditional use permit for number 6, a contractor yard shop for construction and landscaping business. Number 20, home extended business for seasonal campground. Specifically conditioned upon compliance of number 3 and 4 above. Brookings County zoning director either will be or will not be authorized to issue any building permits. If this conditional use permit is not used within 3 years, it shall be invalid, dated 7 July 2020. Any additions or corrections?
Seeing none, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Jensen,
Yes.
Dietrich,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Kleinjohn,
Aye.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Spence,
Aye.
and Ford.
Aye.
Motion passes. You're welcome.
Agenda item number 12. Dennis Oman has made an application 2020 CU 014 to the Brookings County Board of Adjustment for conditional use. Article,
Yes. Yes.
Article 4 District Requirements, Chapter 4.03 LP Lake Park District, Section 4.03.02, Conditional Use Permit Number 6, Accessory Buildings with a sidewall greater than 14 feet or more than 2,000 square feet, and used accessory building greater than 120 square feet. The property is described as Lot 3 in Omen Addition in Government Lot 9 in the northeast 1/4 of Section 12, Township 112 North, Range 48W, Oak Lake Township. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Kleinjohn,
Second.
second by Vanderwall. Mr. Hill, would you read the staff report?
Yes, sir. 2020 CU 014, dated July 7th, 2020, prepared by Deputy Richard Hogan. Applicant and owner is Dennis Oman, 3916 North Potsdam Avenue, number 4598, Sioux Falls, South Dakota 57104. The site address in Brookings County is 48345 197th Street, Astoria 57213. Legal descriptions, Lot 3 in Omen Addition, Government Lot 9 in northeast quarter of Section 12, Township 112 North, Range 48 West, Oak Lake Township. Brookings County zoning ordinance, Article 4, District Requirements, Chapter 4.03, Lake Park, Section 4.0302, Conditional Use Number 6, accessory buildings with a sidewall greater than 14 feet or more than 2,000 square feet, and used accessory buildings greater than 120 square feet. 2020 CU 014, Dennis Oman has applied for a Lake Park conditional use to build an accessory building 50 feet wide and 100 feet long. The 14-foot sidewall equals 5,000 square feet to be used for personal storage. Mr. Oman's lot is 9.58 acres in size and is located in the family-owned Oman Addition on the east side of Oak Lake. The property was platted in 1972 and rezoned from natural resources to Lake Park in 1975. The Omans have owned the property since the mid-1970s. The balance of Oak Lake is zoned natural resources. Public notices were published in the Brookings Register on June 23rd and June 30th, 2020, and in the White Tri-City Star on June 25th and July 2nd, 2020. Letters were sent to the adjoining landowners, Oak Lake Township, chairman and clerk, and Brookings County Highway Department. Here's the application. One of those extremely long, odd-sized lots. You see the rest of the lake is all natural resources, a couple. The yellow is the lake park areas. Long driveway. And that's it.
Would the applicant come forward and state your name and any other additions?
My name's Dennis Oman. I live at 48345 197. And we're just planning on building a house there, just what would be south of those trees that were where the building's going to be built. So we're planning on right there on the other side of those trees right there. We'd be building a house also eventually. Yeah, so whole barn would be on one side of the trees, house be on the other. There's almost no visible from the highway or anything. You can't see you won't be able to see the building. So it shouldn't affect anybody. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll now open the public portion of the hearing. Is there anybody in the audience or on the phone that is for this? Seeing none, I'll move on to opponents. Is there anybody in the audience or on the phone that is against this? Seeing none, I will close the public portion of the hearing. Is there any additional comments or questions from members of the board?
So it meets the setbacks from the water. I mean, we have a,
Yes,
Okay.
Richard took a look at all that before, when he was out there.
or the high water marks we always discuss, I guess.
It meets the setback on the lake park, which is a zone. If you was on the other side of the lake, it probably would not meet the setback, but that's because it's got a much.
Okay.
Are you 300 feet away from the water?
He does not-
300 feet? 75?
This is lake park, so 75.
Okay,
The 300 comes from natural resource. That's a different part of the lake.
all right, all right.
Okay. Are there any other additional comments or questions from members of the board? Seeing none, would you read the findings of the facts?
Sure. Just one considering, once again, 2020 CU 4014. I'll read the high points. Application being made by Dennis Oman, Lot 3 in the Oman Addition, Government Lot 9, northeast quarter of Section 12, Township 112 North, Range 48 West, Oak Lake Township. Application had a public notice, and the meeting was to be held on 7 July 2020, which it was. Number 1, Article 4, District Requirements, Chapter 4.03, Lake Park District, Section 4.03, .02, Conditional Use Permit Number 6. Further finds that this will not adversely affect the public interest. Number 2, Board of Adjustment further finds and certifies that the specific rules governing the conditional use permit have been complied with. There's none listed since he meets the setbacks. All he's asking for is a building size. Number 3, following provisions, the entrance and exit we'll use existing driveway on 197th Street, which is also Brookings County 42. B, no off-street parking areas are available, so none available. Utilities, refuge, and service areas, there's none listed. Screening and buffering, he's so far back in the woods, none was listed. Signs, there's no signs proposed for this particular operation. Required yards, he meets the setbacks. G, general compatibility, comprehensive plan is met for the Lake Park District. Conditional use further determines and conditional use permit upon the following special conditions. It's designed for personal use, storage only, which means if you're going to start renting stuff out, you'd have to come back for a conditional use to allow that to happen, so. And by 2/3 vote, if approved, you would be allowed to build a 50-foot wide by 100 feet long accessory building with a 14-foot sidewall on a lakefront lot in the Lake Park District as long as the lot is long, narrow shaped, and the size of the lot being 9.58 acres. You have to follow number 3 and 4. Brookings County Zoning Director will or will not be authorized to issue any permits. It must be used within 3 years or it becomes invalid. Dated 7 July 2020. Yeah, but that really has nothing to do with this particular building, does it? Does that have anything to do with this building? Then. Yeah, that's for this conditional use permit. When you do your house, and you have to get the proper permits, like from the highway department and all that. And if you meet all the setbacks, you just get your building permit and build your house. That has nothing, this conditional use permit only talks about this building that you're building. And if you happen to use the new driveway after the building is built, that's fine, because it's a quote-unquote official driveway. Yep. Nope, that's fine. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
You're fine. Would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Detrek,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Lion John,
Aye.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Spence,
Aye.
Jensen,
Yes.
and Ford.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll give you a piece of paper here in a minute.
Agenda item number 13, bylaw update. Review and adoption of amended bylaws. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Vanderwall,
Second.
second by Bartley. Bob, would you read the staff report, please? I don't know, it says you do. Staff report?
Yeah, it's not really a staff report. What we got is, we went through the bylaws which were done in 2018. Originally, the original bylaws was done in 2001. We amended them in 2018, and now we're requesting to get them amended again in 2020. And there were some minor changes that we wanted done. We sent them out to you in time to look. And if you have any questions, now would be the time to bring them to us. We can go through here and look. There's been some changes, such as our meetings will be televised and offer the option of teleconference attendance when advertised as such as tonight's meeting. And some of this language come from a new South Dakota codified law that just passed, actually July 1st, if I'm not mistaken. But Luke, Mr. Mueller, do you have any comments on this particular one? The ordinance, bylaws update?
No, at this point, what you see is what you get.
Huh.
I've reviewed them, and for the most part, they kind of a mesh of state law and how you've been running things, just kind of keeping things up to date. I know your staff, Bob, Richard, Raylan, they've done a good job of trying to incorporate some of the comments we've been making at the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners and other meetings we've been doing.
Does the board members, you've had it for a few days, any comments that you saw?
Should I need to do a public hearing portion of this?
I wouldn't think so. No,
Okay.
this is an internal type thing.
Is there any additional comments or questions from members of the board?
The reason I said no public hearing, it says right here, the bylaws may be amended at any meeting of the planning commission, provided that notice of said proposed amendment is given to each member in writing at least 2 weeks prior to the meeting.
Perfect.
So we're basically following our bylaws.
Well, then would you do a roll call vote, please?
If she gives me the proper paperwork. Bartley,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Klein John,
Aye.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Spence,
Aye.
Jensen,
Yes.
Dietrich,
Aye.
and Ford.
Aye.
The new bylaws are in effect. And I would like to ask, is Mr. McHugh on the phone? I don't think he ever came on. Yep. I just wanted, if he was on, I wanted to acknowledge him, but he wasn't on when we did our first roll call, so. And we never backed off and to see if he was available, so. But we had our full board, so
We're good enough anyway.
yep, we're good.
Agenda item number,
Pardon me? I'll shoot him an email or call him tomorrow and explain to him why we didn't move back to him. He's a lawyer, he can sue us. All right.
department reports.
Obviously, this COVID-19's been affecting the offices. The county, all county offices are fully open. City of Brookings, I don't know what they did tonight, but so you see, some of the effects of it, we don't require a mask. The city does. If you was in here for a city meeting, they would have a sign saying masks are required. We are still social distancing. We're doing what we can to protect ourselves. That's why you got space in between you guys and ladies out there. Did everyone pass the cookies around? Now would be the time to do it before the meeting's over, probably.
We already
If
tried
you want a
that.
cookie,
I
well,
don't-
you can have one,
They
man.
gotta come
You just
down
have to
there.
come get it. And, yeah, like I said, COVID-19, we don't know, it's here, and then until we get the vaccine, it's gonna be an unknown thing. Brookings County has over 80 cases of it, probably, 17 still active or something like that. I guess I don't know the exact number. There's a good number active out there still, and they're throughout the county. There's not one, we can't pinpoint one particular area that's got a large case of them. I mean, it's just literally all over the map. And emergency management, people would think emergency management should know all this crap, and they're keeping us just like mushrooms in the dark. The emergency management field is not working this COVID-19. It is the Department of Health, the medical people, and they're not telling a thing to anybody. So, if you do have questions on COVID-19, there's a 1-800 or a telephone number in Pierre you can call. You can call our office, and we'll try to get what answers we can for you. But other than that, I would just say be careful. I don't know if I'd be going to any large gatherings, such as weddings. We did have a person in Brookings County, worked for Brookings County, went to a wedding, or actually had a wedding. Somebody there ended up with it, and they had a 2-week vacation. So just be careful. It's out there. We don't want. And the problem is, if you catch it, you might think, if I catch it, I probably would be dead. I'm not going to lie. I've got 2 or 3 of them factors, and I'm sure some other people in here do too. We don't want to catch it. But the younger people tend to think that they're supermen or superwomen. But if you catch it at 23, you can end up on a respirator in a hospital just as fast as a 65-year-old guy can. So just be careful out there, is all I can say. Commissioner Bartley, do you have anything? You don't have any, all the paperwork signed you need, except for you? Okay, that's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any need for an executive session?
No.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Who made the motion?
Klein John, or Vanderwall?
Vanderwall and Bartley.
We got a vote, or is that just adjourn? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting
Aye.
adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you, Luke.
Are we off
Thank
to-
you for having